Guten Morgen, good morning everybody here in Collegium Hungaricum Berlin and in the stream. Welcome to the second day of the Transnationale Berlin. You probably heard in the background some things sometimes go wrong, but we are happy that all went well with our panel on the social economic situation of translators in Europe. And I very warmly welcome Marika Heimburger, Miguel Guaro, Margit Walzö, and Holger Fock, who will talk about this exciting topic. And we'll have it in the morning. We'll have people in the stream, and I hope you're all going to enjoy it. Let me just briefly introduce our moderator, Holger Fock. He has been translating French literature for almost 35 years now, different authors such as Pierre Michon and Antoine Volodine, and together with his partner, Sabine Müller, he also translated other authors like Patrick Deville, Matthias Hénard, Olivier Rollin, or Cécile Weisbrot. And 2011, he and Sabine Müller received the Eugen Helmi Translators Prize. And together with the author Mohamed Sarr, both received the prestigious International Literature Prize of the Haus der Kultur und der Welt, House of World Cultures here in Berlin. And in addition, this year they received the Paul Celan Prize of the German Translators Fonds, the Deutsche Übersetzerfonds. And Holger Fock was delegate of the VDÜ, the Verband der Übersetzer, the Translators Association in Germany, and this is very important also for this group, for this round, from 2009 to 2017, he was in the, how do you call it, the board? Mm-hmm. The board of Seattle, the European Council of Literary Translations Association. And in 2015, he also got the president. So the stage is yours. Welcome again and have a nice session.
Thank you, Erasmus. I warmly welcome the public and the public which is online. And in the beginning, I like to introduce and to present my partners in this discussion. Next to me is Margit Walzö, from our Norwegian partner. It's not an association, but it's the Norland, Norwegian Literature Abroad, which is an organization to fund and to give grants for translations and translators of Norwegian literature. Margit Walzö has started with studies in chemistry, she said, and then she changed after that to literature, which is a good combination, I think, because having made some studies in nature sciences will give us a more specific attitude and more specific abilities to handle figures and to handle money and things like this, which literary translators not are so very keen to do. Then she has worked long time as editor and publisher in a big publishing house in Norwegian. I think it's one of the 3 or 4 biggest publishing houses.
No, but it's medium size.
It's medium size, okay. And there she directed the department for fiction, literature, fiction. She herself published 3 novels and 1 non-fiction book, and 2 of these novels has been translated into other languages, German and Italian and some others. And in her function as a director of the Norwegian Literature Abroad organization, she is too the president of an organization which is named NLIT, the European Network of Literary Translation. We will see what this means in our discussion. So next it is Miguel. He is a translator from Russian into Catalan. So he's based in Barcelona. He had made studies in Russian literature and in Slavic philology, and he holds a FID in sociolinguistics. He has published about more than 40 translations of authors like Dostoevsky, Dovlatov, Alexeyevich, and Platonov. I think he's a delegate in the Seattle, or I name it CEATL, because it's not the city in the United States. So the CEATL is the European Council of Literary Translation Associations, and I think he's the delegate of the Catalan Association since 2013, like this, 2014?
I think 2019.
No,
maybe...
No. You have been 15 at Barcelona.
No, I wasn't there, no.
Okay. But since 2021, he is the treasurer on the board of CEATL. He was awarded for some of his translation, especially for the translation of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. And I think he is a little bit also a specialist of figures and of statistics, because he is leading the working group on working conditions in the CEATL. This is a working group which has founded by my Netherlands colleague Martin de Haan and me in 2006, and we have started in that time to make surveys and to publish the results of these surveys on the socio-economic conditions of literary translators in Europe. So at least it's my German colleague Marike Heimburger, who is actually the president of the German association, the VDÜ. She has studied literary translation at the University of Düsseldorf with the languages English and Spain. And she is translating mainly fiction and non-fiction from English since 1998. Most recently, Maya Angelou and Catherine May, among others. And also she's translating from time to time from Danish, because she's living in the south of Denmark. Among others, Jussi Adler-Olsen. She has been active in the VDÜ just for a long time. She was a member of a committee which is which should make negotiation with our publishers and our publishing association. There's no association, but there's the big Börsenverein, and in this Börsenverein there is a committee of publishers. And since I think 6 years or 4 years, she is on the board of the VDÜ, and since 2 years she's the president of the VDÜ. As an author, she has also written journalistic works as well as non-fiction books. So this is for the presentation, and now we will start to discuss, and we will discuss first surely about the economic situation. That means about fees, but it's not only fees what makes the income or the earnings of translators. It's beside fees, there are royalties, and there are the income from the collecting societies, PLR. PLR is the public lending rights. Some minor rights too are collected by the collective societies. And there are in some countries, not in all, but in a lot of countries in Europe, there are also grants and subsidies from different institutions, which you can sum up to the earnings of translators for their situation. So the first question I have is about the actual situation in your specific countries. And to describe the situation, it is necessary perhaps to get an impression about the development in the last 10, 15, or even 20 years. Has there been a development? Is there an improvement, or has been nothing developed at all. I can say something about the French and the Netherlands situation, which I know a little bit, and for the German situation, it's Marike who will give us answers. But we will start with Margit about the Norwegian, which is a special situation. I think it's very unique in Europe.
Yes. The translators are part of the system of collective agreements that regulates all negotiations between translators, publishers, authors in Norway. So we have a system with standard agreements covering all parts of the value chain in the book life in Norway. So this means that it's not individual negotiations between anyone. It is negotiation on the level of the organizations. So almost all the publishers stay loyal to the standard royalties, standard fees for authors and translators. And this means that, of course, every publisher part of the Publishers Association, they have to stay loyal to the system because they're part of it, but also publishers outside the association choose to stay loyal because it's a very well-working system for everyone. It means that, let's say for the publishers, how to attract authors or translators. It's not by competing on salaries. It is by competing, for instance, on resources, quality, marketing, other things than the money. So that means that the level is equal for a very experienced translator and also as for the beginner. So it's a sort of a give and take, but everyone, it's a very broad agreement that this is a good system because it makes it predictable and you can, you don't have to negotiate on behalf of your own book or your own project. If it's interesting, I checked the rates as it is now for translation. It is 20 euros per 1,000 characters. That's the rate now. And as far as I know, this has been increased a little bit through these negotiations. But what is, so it has been a fixed fee for translation. It's now almost as in the system, it's no royalty for translation. But with one exception now, for audio books. Then the fee is counted out from the net income of the sales of the audiobook, 6%, and also for the new format of streaming, the fee is also counted out from 12.5% of the net income from the sales for the streaming. So that has changed the picture a bit for the whole book industry. And if you see the different book groups in Norway, it is the audio books and the streaming. It's there has been an increase in income, but the other book groups have been very stable over the last years, maybe a small decrease in sales. But because of the new audio format, the book industry is doing quite well.
Thank you. Perhaps I have to make one remark that is about the differences between countries, bigger countries with big readership, and small countries like Norwegian, I think it's nearly 5 million
Yes.
Inhabitants, so there is a small readership. That's the difference makes on royalties, because in a small country, royalties nearly did have any big role.
That's
because a bestseller is up to 5,000 copies sold. It's a bestseller, I think, something like this, or 7,000, 8,000. I know the figures, for instance, from Slovenia, which is 2 million inhabitants, and there 3,000 copies sold, is a very, very big bestseller in Slovenia. And they have royalties, about 5%, but 5% from 2,000 or 3,000 copies sold is not very much. So fees are much more important there than in a country like the United Kingdom or in Spain. But the situation in Catalan is a special one.
Yeah,
so
similar to the Norwegian one,
yes.
I guess. Yeah. Regarding the situation in Catalonia, I would rather make a general overview of the initial question you posed, a European overview. Yeah. I think it will be probably more useful. Once we were speaking about fees, and you asked Holger about the evolution of fees in the last years, if I understood well, Seatel conducted a survey 3 years ago, in 2020, and the COVID rise and everything was delayed, but the survey was taken in 2020, and almost 3,000 literary translators from all over Europe responded to the survey, and it was a survey about the working conditions, specifically about the socioeconomic conditions of our colleagues in Europe. We found out, comparing the results with the previous Seatel survey that was led by you, or your group, I mean, that in many countries, in the vast majority of countries, in fact, translation fees didn't increase for 10 or even 15 years, or even 20 years. That might be the case for Catalonia, for example. It's only in the last 3-4 years that people started negotiating a lot and complaining a lot and getting 1 or 2 more euros per page or something in some specific cases. But we are almost all getting the same money now than that we were getting in the year 2000 or 2001. And inflation has grown a lot in this last 20 years. We changed from our currencies to euro in 2001 in Spain, for example, and everything changed a lot. But we are getting the same money, so our purchasing power has dramatically decreased. I mean, for all literary translators in Europe. We tried to exploit the data we collected, asking our colleagues about their translation fees. And we tried to summarize it somehow to compare it with the average income in their respective countries. It is a difficult calculation to make, you know it. It takes us ages to come to some kind of figure, but we made some very disappointing findings from the literary translator professional point of view, of course. So the fact is that full-time working translators, full-time working literary translators are not even approaching the average income if they are working hard the whole year. I mean, if they are translating around 1,000 pages of 1,800 spaces, which is a lot, they will make, for example, in Germany, around the half of the average income in Germany. They will make around 40% in Catalonia of the average income. They will make in Denmark a mere 31% of the average income. And on the other side, they will make in Lithuania, for example, 78%, which means that their fees are pretty much balanced with the economic situation of the country, or 75% in Bulgaria. Countries in which fees are very low in comparison to our countries, I mean, the countries present in this panel, but significantly balanced with the economic situation in their states. So the situation across country in comparing countries is very diverse, going from Norway, which has fixed fees, which are pretty decent, let's put it this way, for translators, to countries like Romania or Serbia, which have very low, extremely low, like 30 times lower than in Norway, for example. In Catalonia, as I said, we have the same situation we had like 20 years ago. We are getting around, in average, around 12 euros per 1,800 spaces, which in comparison to France, for example, or Germany, where you get the double of it in average, it's really a really low fee. So as I said, the situation is overall complicated all across Europe for translators, but it depends on the country. It gets much more complicated than the others because policies are very diverse regarding PLRs or royalties or fees, of course, but even at this contract level, they are very, very different. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Margi, what's about Germany? Yes, already give some one figure, but can you detail it a little bit more?
I'm tempted to say there's nothing left to say, but maybe I can add some things or confirm what Miguel said. The VDU does ask their members every once in a while in surveys. There are 3 different kinds of surveys. One is about only the fees. One is just about is a bit broader about the income, and then we just had a very new one about the social situation, including old age,
social security,
and all that stuff. We can confirm what you said, Miguel, that translators in Germany's income in average is only 50% of what the average income in Germany is otherwise. And that means that is not even 20,000 euro gross.
Mm-hmm. Gross income, yes.
So before taxes.
And before social security.
And before social security. Which means retirement plans is not very well popular between literary translators, or even not possible. Yeah. And we can, of course, say that well, this is numbers around these 50%. That is valid for the past 20 years, from 2003 to today. Our fees have lost about 16% of the purchasing power in that time. And the average fee per page, and that's a standard page in Germany, which is defined by 30 lines, or maximum 30 lines and maximum 60 spaces, which is not 1,800 spaces, because not all pages are full. Yeah. Just because we don't know who's listening. Just an explanation. We say maybe, let's say 1,500 spaces.
Maximum.
Around there. And the fee, our average, not minimum, average fee in 2021 was €18.73. So I envy Norway for their collective agreement. Speaking of which, in Germany we have tried to come to a collective agreement with publishers. There is one, but it is not broad enough. and it has to be negotiated again, but we have not got the power. Although I think that we are covering at least 60 or 70% of the literary translation production with our members in Germany, but still we're not powerful enough. And that was the fees, and then because you also mentioned royalties, this income survey we had showed that that 60% of those who answered the survey don't even get 500 euro per year in royalties. So it's not really existent, although we have standards and there is a royalty paragraph in every contract today, but more and more books don't even get to the minimum sales numbers defined there.
We have to say for this, if I can interrupt you for this kind, because there's a special situation in Germany since 2002. We have had a new contractual copyright, which stipulates that literary translators have a right to have royalties, but that's all in this law. There are no figures, so the figures has been to negotiate. And as we don't have the right to go to court to start legal action as an association, but only as an individual literary translator, that means that it was up to individual translators to ask for these royalties, and if in the beginning, sure, the publishers don't give, so they go to court, and Marike was one of the first five German translators who has gone to court with I think it was a non-fiction book.
No, fiction.
Fiction, okay. And after a long period of years, we finally get at the Federal High Court the last and definitive sentence of this, which is stipulating that translators will have the right to 0.8% royalties from 5,000 copies on. So if you have a book which is sold with 200 or 300,000 copies, then you get a lot of money. But if you normally have a book which is sold at 1,500 or 2,500, then you get nothing. And it's to say that nearly 60% of all books in Germany are under this line of 5,000 copies. And it's very difficult to even to have this 0.8%, because our big enterprises in the publishing industries, we have 4 big groups, they all minimize it more, because they argue that the court has spoken his sentences to individual cases. So any individual case must be looked specially, but they don't look any individual case. They have their individual contracts, which they offer to their translators, and it's always the same in it. It's not 0.8% from 5,000 copies on, it's 0.5% from 8,000 copies on, and it's limited to 50,000 copies or to 70,000. There are different schemes of limitation of this. And to fight against this is very difficult, because we only can introduce new legal action if the outcoming of that will be minimum 50% more than that was what is stipulated always in the contract. So it must be very high. And there is always the fear of individual translators to be blacklisted. We have this effect, surely.
It took 18 years for the publishing house I sued to ask me again to make a translation for them. And then they offered a lower fee than 18 years before. I also want to mention public library.
We will come to this.
That's
Yes,
later?
that's
Okay.
another- we come to
Grants
the
and
topic.
prices?
Public landing rights and...
Grants and prices?
yes. We
May
come
I-
to this.
Okay.
Okay. I only want to
But
give
if
some figures
just
about
one
France
I
and
want to
Netherlands.
place one last remark to the,
Okay.
The fees.
Yeah.
That's what's so
Yeah.
important. Is the only thing that is predictable in
Yeah.
our income.
Yeah.
All the other things we are talking about, royalties, PLR, grants, prices, is sometimes, if you're lucky, or if society says we want to give more taxes so that our artists have a better income. The fees is the only thing we can calculate with, and the fees is the only thing we can base our working life and our life on, and that is not sustainable as it is at the moment, and has not been for 20 years at least.
So it's a similar situation in France. French translators got an agreement with publishers a long time ago, nearly 18 or 20 years. And since that time, nothing developed, really nothing, without one thing that after that time, more and more French university offers literary translation as a subject to study, which has had the effect that 11 universities thrown out every year hundreds of literary translators which don't arrive really in the market, but who are decrease the fees in reality. So French translators even have a decrease in the fees since 2005 or 2006. And the second problem is in this agreement with the publishers, there is stipulated that the fees are calculated on the base of a page of 25 lines to 60, maximum of 60 characters. And nearly all publishing houses today offers 1,500 characters, which is not the same. It's more 1,200 characters in the beginning, and only very, very famous translators arrive to stay on this old agreement. In the Netherlands, the situation is the contrary, because they too have an agreement with publishers since a long time, I think now since 12 years, 12, 13 years, which was in the beginning, it was difficult to realize because there have been some members of the government who said that it's not reliable to see it in common with the antitrust laws of the Netherlands or of the European Union. But therefore, the parliament has changed the laws, so the artists are excluded of these antitrust laws. And in this agreement with translators in the Netherlands, there is a possibility, or not only the possibility, there's a duty for the publishers in negotiation with the translators to decrease every 2 years the fees on the base of the inflation, of the decrease of the purchasing power and of the decrease of the average income of Netherlands. So this is a very, very good thing. We asked in our negotiations with some publishers we have had in between 2010 and 2014 to introduce this. It was impossible. They declined all thing in this direction, and the effect is that since 2014 the fees which are given as minimum fees in this agreement, which is an agreement only with 2 big houses and 7 or 8 small houses, so it's perhaps representing 4 or 5% of the market, that there is no development since this time. And what has been defined in this negotiation as minimum fees, in reality are maximum fees. So there are minimum fees in the agreement, but I don't know any translator going behind or above these rates which are in this contract. In the Netherlands, the situation is a special one because they are paid by the number of words, and this is increasing every 2 years. But in the totally, they have more or less the same fees as in Germany. In France, it's about 15–20% higher as in Germany or in the Netherlands. But in the Netherlands, they have a very, very special situation on grants and subsidies. We will talk after this. So Miguel already stated this comparison to the average income in the countries, and I would like to ask Margit how it is in Norway, because it seems it may be a lot to have 36 euros to 1,800 characters with spaces, or compared to our pages. It seems to be a lot, but if you know the purchase power in Norwegian and the high level of costs of everything in Norwegian, it is perhaps not so much how it is for a Norwegian translator in comparison to the average income, or perhaps in comparison to a teacher in school.
I must admit that I'm not that into these kinds of investigations that I'm sure that the translators organization do themselves. So, of course, it is the same in Norway as you explained from other countries, that to be a translator its conditions demanding to work really, really hard and to be very effective to make a living out of it. And maybe it's not possible even then, because the living cost in Norway is very high, and also the inflation is high, and there's been a decreasing in purchasing possibility. But the system is that for the translator, as part of the literary system on a whole in Norway, is very good. Also because we have strong organizations for writers, translators, and they are powerful, and they do a really good job and collaborate with the publishers. But of course they are in a competition. So there are some challenges for them as well, but compared to many other countries, they are in a good condition because the system is working well for them. But I'm not able to answer more detailed on this question.
Okay, thank you. In the beginning I said it's not only fees which make the earnings of literary translators, but it's earnings coming from collectively managed rights, like the PLR, the public lending rights, or other minor rights. Could you say, beginning with you and then with chaining with Mikael and Ning, what may be the percentage or the part of income coming from these collectively managed rights to the translators? Which part in their whole income may represented by this
what I can say is that that we have collective agreements and that the remuneration coming from all secondary rights for books in Norway and also from lending in libraries, every income from that is gathered in an organization called Kopinor, who is representing the whole, the publishers, the translators, authors, everyone, and that the remuneration back to the writers and the translators are a mix of individual and collective money, but in Norway a big part is in the collective remuneration. So that means that the organizations, they have a very good possibility of giving out grants for writers, authors, and translators. And I think that is for Norway, as a country with 5 million people, this also that we have this system, it's part of a system. We also have a purchasing system for books, so that the government or the state buys every year about between 500 and 1,500 copies of around 600 new titles coming out every year, fiction, non-fiction, and children's books. This is a system that has been developed since the 60s, and it means that every library around Norway will have the same books, so that everyone can read the new books. So that's sort of a democratic system, and it means that it takes down the risk for the publisher when they publish books. So that also means that the number of first book writer in Norway is quite high. And when this system was invented, it was to support production of books written in Norwegian language. So it goes also back to history, that to support language has also always been a part of Norwegian cultural policy. So this was a long answer back to that fact that in Norway a bigger part is given back to the collective than to the individual.
That means that from the collecting societies, a big part of the money, of the income they had, is given to this sort of funds,
yes,
which is funding grants, individual grants for translators,
yeah,
but it's not going directly to the translators.
No, but it's also a part going directly, yeah, but
it's a smaller part.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's similar in Spain. Maybe in Catalan it's a bit more particular, but it's similar in Spain because the collecting society, which is called Cedro, collects money from PLRs and reprography also and private copying, and it assigns an amount of money to professional associations so they can develop their own projects. So it's not for grants for authors, but for projects for professional associations. Mm-hmm. So the money, okay, it's reverting into authors, but not directly. We really got a small amount of money directly from Cedro, from PLRs. I mean, it's ridiculously low amount of money, maybe around 100 euros a year or 200 euros a year, or even less. It depends on how many books have you translated so far, or how many books have, because there is no specific control on the public libraries. We are not getting money from these lendings. So it's a very tricky question still in Spain. And of course it has to go and undergo further discussion because it's not solved. as it is now. And about this system, I already read about this system in Norway, about buying books, about buying the new books for all libraries. It has been in discussion in Spain too, but so far what won is the criterion that the librarian has to be autonomous in their decision. So every library has different books. And there is not a single unified criteria for the buying of these books. This is a very arguable thing, I think. I pretty much agree that it is a very nice and neat and clear system in Norway, that we are putting money to foster our literature and to widespread our authors in our public libraries, which is something I find very logical to some extent, because we also need to read books written in other languages and translated into our home languages. But still, in Spain, the situation is what I described.
How it is in Germany?
The PLR percentage of our income, I have no survey numbers on that. I can tell you my individual numbers. I think that's maybe 7% of my income.
Yes, 5 or 7. 7 is good. Yeah. So the
7,
figures, the last figures
but comparing with my Danish, with the Danish chair of the Translators Association, I know she gets 10 times as much.
Yeah. Yes. The Danish system is a little bit similar to the Norwegian,
yeah.
but the money goes individually to the translators.
And I can't explain all the different rules in there, but I think it's a very good system, actually, because it's not dependent on the quality of the books you're translating. You know, there's always this class system, almost, with high literature and low literature, and especially people translating low literature are working like on an assembly line often, and they don't, you know, they don't even get they are not even honored for their work. Mm-hmm. They just work and work and work all the time. So that 5 to 7%. If you said 5, I don't know, but comparing, and then in European comparison, I was told that Germany is on the 3rd last ranking place, just before Portugal and Romania, I think, and Denmark is on top, and Norway is also up there. And I think it's a very fair system, because every person contributing to a country's literature treasure, corpus, whatever you want to call it, is honored for that by getting these PLR monies. And why should children's books get, as translators, get less money than Nobel Prize translators? You know, they're all doing an effort, and they're all producing literature for a broad society. So that would be a very fair system, I think.
I think the Norwegian system is also a system to help publishers, publishing houses. Finally, it's a subvention form of subsidies given to publishing houses. If they give the guarantee, if that the state will pay for 500 or 800 books. So you can make a totally other calculation as if you depend only on the market. Yeah. And this is a very, very interesting thing, because this system gives the publishing houses certain security, economic security, which makes it easier for them to negotiate on a fair level with translators and authors. So this is why I think it is a very interesting system. Yeah. If this system is feasible in big countries as Germany, Spain, Italy, France, I don't know. It would be very difficult.
If I may add something regarding to this point, I don't know if you're familiar with the Translators on the Cover report that was published, issued, not published, last year by the EU. It's part of the Work Plan for Culture 2019-2022, and the report was the result of the meetings of a group of EU member states experts, in which the Danish delegate to CERTEL and president of the Danish Authors Association, Juliane Wammen, was part of this group. And it is an extremely interesting report. And in its conclusions, it goes in this line that Holger was pointing. It says, I will quote this, translation usually represents a substantial investment for publishers. That's true, right? Uncertainty of the market for translated books outside bestsellers and big language books. So it's you have to take it into account that they are very uncertain about what will this book, how will one particular book sell in one country. And then it goes further. Although many publishers act in good faith, the financial constraints they face might tempt some to take advantage of the fragile position of translators to impose very low fees and/or unfair contracts. So it is going that way, that if you can somehow assure the position of publishers, then it should revert on the position, on a better position for the translators too. And related to this, in the specific market, literary market of Catalan language, is very specific because we Catalan readers also can read Spanish, so it's very difficult for publishers to develop a robust economic model. Almost all translated books in Catalan are granted, are subsidized by the Catalan government, which pays from 70 to 80% of the translation. So, thanks to the intervention of my association, the Catalan Authors Association, the government agreed with us and with publishers that all granted translations would have a minimum fee, which was rising from one year to another, and €1 per year, you know. And we started at 12, then 13, then 14, and will be €15 per page, which is more than it is usually, what is usual, which is the average fee. And it's somehow this kind of collaboration between the government, the publishers, and the authors, coming to some kind of agreement, which is in profit of us all. So we are fostering, as you pointed, the literary system. We are contributing to it, and it's in the spirit of the DSM. I think we will speak further afterwards about the DSM. It's in the spirit of the DSM that everybody gets a proportionate, a proportionate.
So there is also some relation between the fact of grants and the effect on the increase of fees in Catalan. Mm-hmm. Speaking now about grants and subsidies, I will point out that in the Netherlands we have a system that in the Netherlands Letterenfonds, Fonds, which has a very high budget, every fiction translation is granted, and in the minimum 50% of the fee, very often the double of the fee, and if it is difficult, demanding translations, it's even 150 or 200% of the fee. So Netherlands translators, literary translators, can make a little bit more decent life of their translation, but not of the income of their fees, but of this system of grants. I think the Norway system is very different, but there are two grants, very, very high grants, even grants which are going about 3 or 5 years to one translator.
Now, are you sorry? If you are talking about the situation in Norway, that's one thing. But also, when you are mentioning Letterrenfonds, I also think of the translation subsidy that they and also Nordlag gives to foreign publishers, because that's a system that is.
Okay, we will come to this in the next round. Because there we have to make a difference between funding publishing houses for translations and funding translators. We will come to
how the grants, the structure that some of them are going over several years. It's the same in Norway. That they can be from just some working grants for a couple of months up to several years, and also some grants for authors, especially, has now been increased. So some very few get a grant for 10 years, but I'm not sure if that is. I think that is a new system, and so far I've heard of some very few authors who got that. So it's a very varied system.
How it is in Spain in general, not only in Catalan? Are there a certain system of grants, of little grants, of bigger grants, or is it very difficult to get some?
No. There are systems there are programs for granting directly literary translators, and I think it's not difficult to get them, but it's always the same amount of money, regardless of the translation you are asking the money for.
You know something about the budget of this fund?
Yeah, it was raised for Catalan translations, and it was raised also for Spanish translations, I think 2 years ago. And there's also this new program now in Spain, granting translations between the languages of Spain, which is a new program.
Sure.
And for the case of Catalan, it has raised a lot. They have raised the individual amount and the gross amount, the total amount of the, I don't remember now, which is, I think it's 250,000, but I'm not sure about this. I don't remember now.
So it's a million roundabout, but there are, I know that the Spanish is the language in which most translations are realized every year.
Yes.
More than Germany or Italian or French.
Yes.
So if you compare this, in Germany we have perhaps 9,000, 10,000 translations per year. It might be more in Spain.
I know it percentually. It's more or less 30–35% of the total amount of books published are translations. In Spain.
So this million is, if you compare it to the situation of the number of translations,
what
not
million?
Very much.
No, I didn't say a million. I said 250,000 for the Catalan market.
Okay.
But I'm not sure about the figures for Spain. I don't remember now.
What is this in Germany?
We have got this excellent Deutscher Übersetzerfonds, in short, DÜV. Located here at the Wannsee, close to Berlin. That was founded, I think it's now 26 years ago.
97, yes.
Yeah. And the budget used to be around €1 million, not from the start maybe, but like, let me say pre-pandemic, it was 1.1 million. And during the pandemic, thanks to a program our Kulturstaatsministerin gave green light to, the funds were increased substantially, very, very substantially. I don't know the number, but it was at least double up, and many, many new things were born out of that, because there were so many ideas in so many heads around. And there was this grant system, like working grant or traveling grants. All I don't know them all, because not all are applicable for me, but my experience is, and I heard it from many other colleagues, that you tried to get one of those grants, and you tried again, and you tried again, and you tried again. You tried like 6, 7, 8, 10 times, 12 times, and you never got it, pre-pandemic. And it was like, many felt like it's always the same people getting those grants. And that was, again, because that was this quality, high literature, low literature stuff. And due to many more funds, much more money in the pocket, many more translators all of a sudden during the pandemic were granted these grants. So that was a absolute improvement for many of us. But this program, Neustart Kultur, what was just a program, and now it is finished. But we got to know, and I think I may say it, because DUF has also sent a press statement out on this, that these 1.1 million will be 2.45 million as from 2024. So we would have liked to see 4 million, but 2.45 is really the biggest increase we have seen in these 26 years. And that will, of course, mean that many translators profit from it.
But granted are only on demands and exposés of translators, and there's a jury who is evaluating the 10 pages of translation. And it's normally 3 times a year when the juries will come together and spend the money. But it's only given to between 60 and 70 translators every time. So we have in our association, I think, 1,400 translators and perhaps 2,000 translators active in Germany. So you can see this system is a very exclusive system. Yeah. It's not like in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, it's every member of the fiction translator association gets automatically on demand subsidies. And that's a big difference. And you see the difference also in the budget. In the Netherlands, the budget is about more than 3 million for 270 translators. So there you can see this difference. And this difference is really a big thing in the Netherlands, because it allows to translators to make a decent living. It's not on the average of the income of all Netherlands, but it's not far away from it. In France, it's the contrary. In France, there is the Centre National des Lettres, who is giving working grants too, but some years there has been so less inquiries to get grants from French translators that they diminished the budget of it. And the budget is not very high, it's about 200,000 or something like this. And the systems of these grants is very, very different in a lot of countries in Europe, and there are still a lot of countries which didn't have any grants. So the last thing, I think we have 10 minutes.
I may add something, just a tiny thing to this. I think that small cultural or literary ecosystems, or small and medium-sized lingua cultural communities are pretty particular also in this regarding to grants. I mean, there are many specificities to these kind of communities, and the Dutch community is one of these. I think it's not comparable in terms of why are they doing this.
If I
there
may,
have been a question.
may I add one
Yeah?
thing to this grants and prizes? Our survey showed that almost 50% of our members, or of those who answered the survey, said that grants and prizes do not at all contribute to their income. But at least 40% say it does. So it's really a divided group, and I think that's again what I said. Some know that with this project I will get a grant because it's so difficult, it's so demanding, whatever, and the others never get anything. Unfortunately, it proves maybe what I said.
There would be a question.
We cannot hear you.
We can't hear you, sorry.
Die Technik kommt bestimmt gleich dazu.
Maybe it's not. Is it working?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Juliane Seifert. I'm a translator, but also a sociologist. And I'm wondering, like, I think we can all agree, like with everything we heard, on the fact that translators are mainly underpaid everywhere in Europe. And I'm wondering if, since we have these studies with hard fact statistical figures, wouldn't it be a good way to use them in an argument, not like comparing, okay, in this country maybe it's a little bit better or something, but for example for Germany, for some years now we have a minimum wage, and like maybe French would say, let's call a cat. Like if you have the figures of how the comparison to the average wage in a country per year, you could certainly also find a way statistically to break it down to a wage per hour, by which we could prove that publishers are actually violating the Mindestlohngesetz, which might be an interesting argument to like politically be heard, because I feel like we are treated as artists when it comes to payment, but actually we're, like we can discuss it. I also think it's kind of an art to translate, but we are a service provider actually, and if the publishers face too many difficulties to pay us correctly, then probably something is wrong with the whole system, which is probably linked to capitalistic society, but also I was wondering if in the statistics you can find if in countries where the profession is mainly female, the payment is lower than in countries where it's maybe not that female, because I also feel that in the publishing industry, women, unfortunately, tell women that they should accept not to be paid correctly.
There's a lot of things to comment, I think. If I can start, I will start with the last question. We found out that fee depends more on age than on gender. So more experienced translators, regardless of the fact that they're man or women or non-binary or not, they didn't declare the gender, are better paid than younger translators, which is something we can think it's a bit logical, maybe. Yeah? So more experience have more a guarantee of quality. We can suppose this. So that's the thing. Or they are stronger enough to negotiate the fee, which is they have the authority to negotiate the fee, and younger ones don't. So that's the point. The other thing you mentioned, I cannot speak for Germany, but in Spain, collective bargaining, it's forbidden for individual workers. So the competence law forbids collective bargaining for individual service providers. So translators, we cannot collectively agree on nothing, and especially on fees with anybody. So I think there's not pretty much to do with it, except going individually to court, as my colleague here did, and winning some cases, and maybe at some point we will get somewhere where everybody will be well paid, which goes, in fact, this point goes, in fact, it's contrary to the spirit of the Digital Single Market Directive, which says that all the agents who are working in the book sector have to receive an appropriate and proportional payment for their service. And we know that translators are, it is not the case for translators. So the DSM was implemented differently in the different European countries, and sometimes the national copyright laws go against the spirit of the DSM, especially at this point, in the point of the payment of translators. So it's the trickiest thing, I think, I'm afraid, of the whole overview we had today here.
It's difficult to compare to minimum wages. We have nearly in 22 or 23 countries of the European Union, we have minimum wages. But literary translators are always seen as not only freelancer, it's small enterprises. Mm-hmm. So we are depending on totally other rules than employees.
Regarding gender pay gap, our surveys show that men get higher fees. Yeah. I don't know the numbers exactly, but then you can discuss maybe it's also the men that tend to get the better authors and the better books, and more women translate more children's books, you know, and there's lower fees for children's books than on higher literature. Yeah. So there is something with gender, but we can't really put our fingers on it. Yeah. And the thing with the how much do we earn per hour, that's also something we are looking at all the time. And the VDU is organized in the big cultural union Verdi, and together with Verdi and other cultural branches like the authors and painters and actors, we have been looking at also all the invisible work we are doing, because we cannot translate 8 hours per day and stuff. And we related that to the tariffs im öffentlicher Dienst, TVÖD, and that generated a paper which is now being sent out to the politicians, where first we calculate that way, and then we calculate back again, and we come to the result that we should actually be paid, like, I don't know the number, 20,000 euro per book translation, which is way out of proportion, looking at what we're getting now. But it is really to show something is really, really wrong here.
To go to the end of our panel, I like to have a little perspective into the future, and this beginning to ask you if the European Directive on Copyright and Related Rights in the Digital Single Market from 2019, if this have had some effects in your market, in your book market, on especially for literary translators. And then I would like to ask you if you have a look on a perspective, what can you imagine for the future to improve the situation of literary translator, which is in most countries, you have seen, is a very hard one, and it's a precariat, artistical precariat. So beginning in Norway.
Well, I just think then I would like to see it a bit from the Norla perspective about the travel from one country to another for literature. That is the exchange and the dialogue you can have through books and through the big variety of books and literature between countries, and that is what Norla is doing, supporting that journey. And there it's the translators who are the most important person in the journey. And when we support translation financially, and also we try to do as much as we can for translators to support their work and to give the knowledge they need about Norwegian literature, because we think their role are so important. And this is a very important role also in the future, I think, so that we are able still to read each other's books across countries' border, and that the translator translate and is the core of bringing the voice of the author into another language. It's very important. And as an ambassador also, that the translator is also a very important figure in making the contacts. And this is a role that is very important now that we still will have in the future with other challenges coming from artificial intelligence. But I would like to emphasize the very important role of the translator in all the capacities.
Norla normally gives subsidies to the publisher, not directly to translators. But you give some, I think, some traveling grants to translators from other countries to go to Norway.
Yeah, we have a whole set of different schemes to support translators, but the most important is the translation subsidy, which is granted to the publisher when they have bought the right for the Norwegian book and they have the contract in place with the rights holder and also with the translator. But, so this grant is supposed to cover a part of the grant that the publisher give to the translator. Fee, absolutely. And of course, we support that translators can come to Norway to meet the authors and to meet the literary agents and to get an overview over the Norwegian literary landscape. And we arrange seminars in Norway and abroad for and with translators.
And why do you don't give directly grants to the translators?
It's part of the value chain that there should be, everything should be in place with copyright and the contracts between the publisher, the translator, and the publisher in Norway. So it's the body giving, bringing the book to the market, who is the place to the core of this value chain.
Mikael, how it is with
regarding
this directive?
The DSM directive implementation, as I already pointed, there is some mismatching between the articles of the DSM and the articles on the national copyright laws. And this makes possible that in some countries we collect, I mean the copyright group in Seattle collected some data on this, in Austria, in Poland, in Bulgaria, in Romania, but also in France and Italy. There are some legal loopholes that are allowing lump sum payments for translations, which is something that the DSM just restricts to some specific cases. So as far as this is possible, we must say that the DSM has not been correctly implemented, and so the European Commission should address this and monitorize this and issue some guidelines to revert all these problems.
Okay. So in Germany, the directive is implemented in
yes,
all
but
laws?
there are still some uncertainties, like we mentioned the training data before, I think. All the texts or pictures or music, everything that is going into those machine systems that then produces new things. Are the copyright owners remunerated or not? Is it legal actually to do like that, or is it not? That's not legally clear at the moment. And the other thing that we think is missing is still the possibility for collective action.
Okay. So thank you very much. We are in the end. We are very late. The last point I have foreseen is the question of artificial intelligence, but there will be another panel in this festival of Transnationale, which André Hansen will lead. So I hope you will come there and discuss these questions with the panel on artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you.